Hey guys, good to see you. Thanks for coming out tonight. Today I want to give you a little workshop or talk about what's the most, in my opinion, effective ways to optimize your health for longevity and vitality, right? If maybe those are not the most effective systems if you want to be a bodybuilder or some big men that have many muscles and lifts heavy weights, probably that's not the most effective system. But if you want to have an amazing amount of energy and vitality in your life and you want to live a long, healthy life, that would probably be the most effective way to go about it. So coming from that perspective and having this in mind, right? Again, there's no right, there is no wrong, there is no good, there is no bad. There are just things that are effective and things that are ineffective based on the desired outcome, which in this case is what's the most effective if we want to have a long life and we want to have energy and age in the best way possible. Extend the lifespan of the system, right? So we're going to start with the basics, right? And here's the deal. The reality is such that the human body, even though it looks like one object, is made out of trillions of individual cells. Anywhere between 50 to 100 trillion individual cells that come together in this amazing symphony to create this one piece that we call the human body. It's an extremely advanced technology with so many features and options that I'm still trying to wrap my head around, right? However, the most essential things is that the technology in itself, due to the fact that it's made of individual cells, each of these individual cells being a life form has one agenda in mind: to continue to live and to thrive. Life wants to live, life wants to thrive, right? Regardless of what your idea for a good life is and whatnot, right? So given or taking this into account, we need to start looking at what's the most effective way to not nurture the body, but nurture the whole system, right? Because it's not one object, it's many objects coming together. And this is where we're going to start going to the first point, which when it comes down to health and vitality, the most essential thing is the fuel you put into the system, or how and what do you eat on a daily basis. This would be the most essential element. And let's get more specific. It's not about calories intake, it's about nutritional value that you consume from the food you are putting inside your body, that hopefully is being properly digested and all of these nutritional values are absorbed by the cells. Now, why is this important? It's extremely important because if you buy processed food and if you eat processed food, you're literally eating empty calories, meaning that you have a lot of empty calories in your body and your body is starving for nutrition. And eventually, sooner or later, you're going to have major diseases that most likely will wreck your health and you're going to die a miserable death. Very unpleasant suffering, right? And it's important to invest up front. Like, think of investing in high quality food as healthcare up front. You invest up front into your health so you don't never have to see the doctor, because the doctor is the person you go to once you are sick. You don't go to the doctor to ask for health advice. Doctors have no perception about health. All they know and specialize about is disease, sickness, and infection. They do not study health, right? Because who goes to doctors? People that are already sick or experiencing some disease or health problem. People that are healthy, the last place they want to go to is the doctor's office, right? So doctors have no fucking clue about health. And you want to avoid getting to the doctor's office. The best health strategy is to never have to even know the name of your doctor, right? To know that there is a doctor, but good for him. You know, hopefully he gets some business, but not from you. So how do we do this? The most effective way to nurture the body is to buy organic produce from the farmer's market. Why is this important? Locally grown produce, first of all, is in season, meaning it has ripened properly in the optimal conditions. It has extracted the most possible nutrients from the soil that it lives in, because that's where the nutrients come from. They come from the soil. The fruit, the vegetable, whatever it is not just getting nutrients from the sun, right? The sun helps that process. And why it's essential is because every other place you go to pick up produce, meaning Whole Foods, Costco, or any store that has organic product, most likely this product has been grown in a commercial scale operation where it's picked up green and it's artificially ripened in a freezer environment, pumped with ethylene gas to kind of recreate artificially what the sun is supposed to do, right? And that's when actually the fruit or the vegetable extracts the most nutrition from the whole system, from the roots and everything, and ripens up, right? Before that, it's kind of like it's just getting ready to be able to absorb all this. And once it's ready, you can actually absorb it and pack it up. So the most effective nutrition you can put into the system is, again, in season, locally sourced organic products. Think of it, some of you might say, oh, it's expensive, it's pain in the ass, this and that. Well, I'm going to ask you this. Once you ruin your health and you get to the doctor, is it going to be cheap? Most likely not at all. Is it going to be pleasant? Most likely not at all. So avoiding this whole process of going to the doctor in the first place is the best health insurance or health strategy to have. And this is why it's important to invest into your health up front rather than at the end, because you cannot ever repair the damage. It's really hard, since the pharmaceutical industry, I'm going to go deeper into that rabbit hole to give you a background why it's important to never have to step in the doctor's office in the first place, because of how the whole system is structured. There is no healthcare system. There is pharmaceutical sales system. The pharmaceutical industry is created for treating symptoms of diseases. It's a subscription model, meaning that once you become a customer, they don't want to lose you. You don't want to keep you in the loop over and over and over and over again. They're going to give you pills. Your body is going to develop tolerance. Those pills are going to become ineffective. You're going to need to increase the dosage, or you're going to need to move to another one, and so on. So once you get into the family, you don't leave the family, because it's not about healing you. It's about subscribing you, and then from then on, keep on feeding you little pieces of chemicals that incrementally change your state, but in essence does not heal or providing the healing you need, because the body in essence have everything necessary to heal itself and to be in the state of balance. However, in order for this to happen, you need to feed it the right nutrition. You need to get out of its way, right? Because if you're in the way, meaning you're feeding it shit, you are always sedentary, not doing the things the body was meant to do, you're going to have a hard time staying healthy, right? So understanding this is extremely important. And then the other part comes to, again, this is not for everyone. My story is, growing up as a kid, I didn't give a fuck about what I ate. I would eat anything. I was one of these kids that would drink like a gallon of soda every single day, right? I ate all the candies, all that kind of shit. However, coming from Eastern Europe, I think we were lucky that we didn't have as garbage food it is here, meaning the corn syrup and all this genetically modified garbage that they put in the food here, right? Because the food industry is so tied up to the medical industry or healthcare industry. It's like a bowl of spaghetti. They work together because one damages the goods, right? You eat food supposedly to be nurtured and to stay healthy and so on. However, it's like a double agent, right? It's supposed to nurture you, but it's not. It's making you sick and deficient on nutrients, right? Because processed food does not contain any nutrition that is necessary for the cells to absorb in order to either build new cells or repair themselves. So investing in high quality products upfront is the best thing you can do if you want to maintain your health. No supplement, meaning vitamins or whatever, would provide you the same type of absorbable, like directly available and absorbable nutrition to your body and your cells. Because the way the system works is the less processed a food is, the more natural and real it is, and the more simple it is in its structure, meaning it's a vegetable or fruit, or something that is not, has a very advanced level of consciousness, or it's not an animal, the easiest for the body and quicker it is for the body to absorb it, to absorb and get the nutrition out of it and put it into usage throughout the system, right, for the cells to absorb the nutrients. Those nutrients are essential because you can, let's say you can buy all kinds of processed food and then like, oh, I'm going to buy me vitamins and all these kind of stuff. Good luck with that. Most of the time you're going to shit them or you're going to piss them away, and the absorption level, if any, is maybe 5% at most because they're not in a natural form that the cells can absorb, right? Because again, think of the body as 50 trillion cells that absorb nutrients through a very specific system. The more closer to natural the food or the fuel is, the easier it is for the system to absorb it and to actually get the nutrients out of it, right? This is the first step. Now we're going to go into from the quality of the fuel we put into the system to how often we put fuel into the system, right? Because it's not just the quantity and the quality, it's how often we do it. Now you see, here's an analogy I want to make. You can think of it as as at your body, or look at it as a racing car. A racing car is fully optimized. It's a highly precise tool for a specific purpose. And it revs really high. The engine revs really high. However, if you were to keep the engine running in the red line nonstop, you're gonna have premature wear and tear on the engine, and the engine's gonna collapse and fall apart very quickly, right? By limiting the amount of time you eat per day, you limit the wear and tear on the car. Here is where fasting becomes essential. And why is it normal and natural, and why are we taught the opposite? Well, think of it this way. We evolved as hunter-gatherers, the human being, the human species. There was never food on demand. There was never a refrigerator where you can have leftovers and so on. If anything, every single day the men went out into the wild to hunt, to gather, and to bring some food to the tribe, to the women, to the kids, and so on. And if they got lucky today, they got food for everyone to eat. But that was once a day. And this food would spread around everyone. So there'll be no leftovers, there'll be no food for tomorrow. Tomorrow is a whole different story, right? That's why we even have in the system this fear or trigger of scarcity. If we know something is scarce, we're gonna want it more, because due to this fact that food was very scarce and hard to find, or required a lot of danger, because if you are out hunting, you're as much of a hunter as a prey to a big animal hunting for something else, right? So that was the big point that is extremely essential to comprehend. Food was very scarce, and in lucky days we will get to eat. Most likely, if anything, the people would have just a small amount of food to eat per day. The body is built to sustain itself for a prolonged time with no food. It's its natural state. That's why we actually store fat, because whenever there is extra food, which is rare or was rare, the body wants to be able to save it, again, because there are no refrigerators to store it at. Food would start to rot. and so on, right? Like in natural environment. So body will store it as fat because the fat is the most energy dense and lightest way to compact energy that could be used directly from your brain and through the whole system. It's the most nutrient and energy dense way to store energy. That's why when we overfeed, we turn it into fat, because that was the only way to actually, if we get lucky, to actually have leftovers. It was stored as fat in the body. And if you go and look into the ancient art of people that lived 5 to 10,000 years ago, when they represent a human body, a goddess would be a very well set female body, a very fat female body, because to them a fat female was unbelievable. It was like a godly thing. Like the obese people today, if they were to live in this environment, they would think that we are gods, literally, because we have so much abundance of food, which couldn't be further from the truth. But that's coming from their perspective of food being scarce, right? And why is it that we are taught to think that we need to eat 3, 4, whatever the fuck times every day? Well, there is the food industry. The food industry's only goal is to sell more product, right? Every business has as its main goal to increase its sales every year over a year, because if they're not increasing their sales, it's considered a negative thing. And they rely on the fact that every human being will be consuming more food this year than it was consuming last year. However, if you were to follow this growth line in yourself, you're going to turn into an obese, unhealthy piece of shit. Right? No excuse there. Because it's your control of how you manage your system. If you don't know how to manage the system, well, you're in the right place. There is no excuse for ignorance. Ignorance is a matter of personal choice. And the only way really to stay healthy is to take control of your health and make the investment up front. First, invest in the highest quality food that you can get your hands on. Again, farmer's market would be the best place. Because the moment you touch the food, you rub it, and it smells like real food. The moment you cut it and you put it in your mouth, it tastes like real food, right? And you can just eat it directly. The less processing in the food, meaning the less cooking, the more just you eat it raw, the better absorption from the body, more nutrients get into the body, less nutrients are lost, because every time you heat, you cook food, even though it becomes maybe tastier and easier to digest, 40 to 50% of the natural nutrients in the food are lost. So if you're eating processed food and you cook it, there's literally nothing left in it for your body. You just have empty calories. You might as well eat toilet paper or paper towels. The effect would be the same. It's just not going to be as tasty. But you can, use some dressings for that. That'll make it a very tasty toilet paper. You can have a very tasty toilet paper wrap or something like that if you like concerned with your calories, right? So going further with that, now you guys are laughing, but this is the pure truth, right? Because if you buy food that has been killed and processed multiple times, the only thing left in it is just empty calories. There's no nutrition for you. That's why we here have this amazing amount of population that is overfed and dying from starvation because there is no nutrition in the food. There's a lot of empty calories. People are fed and obese, but they are unhealthy, right? Because the lack of nutrition. The more processed the food is, the less of those vital nutrients that are left in the food. And again, the food industry and the so-called health industry, they work together. It's like how they get people into the system. It starts from the from the food industry selling so-called food to people to get them to the place of unwell being and not being healthy and being diseased and experiencing so many things because they're following the FDA's Food and Drug Administration. Just look at the name. Food and Drug Administration. How food and drugs could be... doesn't even make sense. Why would you create one entity to manage food and drugs. They both are extremely complex by themselves. Why would you combine them both? Why? Because they work together, right? And the same entities that's supposed to the Food and Drug Administration, that is supposed to control and regulate those industries, are actually ruled or governed by the top executives or chairmen or board directors of all of the biggest corporations in food and pharmaceutical industries. So meaning that the agency that's supposed to regulate those industries is regulated by the executives who already have a very clear agenda. Sell more, grow profitability, which means we gotta find shortcuts to sell lower quality product to the consumers, right? That's how you grow profitability, through processes, right? Cheaper processes. Because why the food at the farmer's market is expensive comparison to, let's say, the products in the normal grocery store? Because one is grown in a very labor-intensive process that is expensive, right? The other one is grown in the most automated nonsense bullshit fucking process that at the end of the day gives you the end result, but the end result is of extremely low quality, even though the price is competitive, right? Again, what is more important to you? It's a question you need to ask yourself. What is important to me? My health now and sustaining this going further, or spending all my time and money to make money so one day I can be an old man in despair spending all his money back to regain his health, right? The truth is, yes, you can kind of heal yourself, but if you wear and tear the machine or this vessel unnecessarily, you're not going to be able to repair the vessels. This is something I was for a while early in my 20s and teenage years, I wasn't very conscious about, right? I didn't really give a fuck about it. Because as a young man, you don't think about these things too much. You drink, smoke, you name it. Whatever it is, you do it. Doesn't matter, right? You just go as it is. Right? And I did it for many years. I grew up in an environment when we start smoking from early childhood. We drink from early childhood and so on. By the time I was 21, the things I've done in my life will blow the mind of any person living here in America, because most of them would never had the chance to do them in their life. At the time I was 21, I didn't even want to drink or didn't want to smoke because it was an old thing, pastime that is like, who the fuck cares? I've done this when I was a kid. What do we do now? Kind of deal, right? And I wasn't very conscious about these things because when you're young, you think you're always going to be young, right? And you can be young at heart, but this vessel, just like a car, if you handle your vessel in a very unconscious way, if you don't give a fuck, if you don't maintain it, if you don't drive it properly, if you always go through the big potholes and do all the kinds of stupid shit, it's gonna have unsustainable amount of wear and tear that eventually will lead it to fall apart, right? And this is the key. You want to optimize the system to where it operates as a racing machine, where everything is optimized to sustain the life of the machine. Meaning, why is it important to fast? Well, you keep the machine light. The lighter the machine is, the less stress there is on all the suspension, right? Because there is less to carry. The lighter the machine is, the easier it is to maneuver. The easier it is to stay flexible, right? And all these other layers, because the less you consume, the less the system needs to work. And here is where this actually takes place. Digesting and consuming food is one of the most energy-intensive processes that takes place in the human body on a daily basis. It takes at least 1/3 of all the vital energy. Meaning that if you eat 3 times per day, literally for the most time throughout the day, most of your vital energy that can be dedicated to any other activity, you're wasting in just digesting food. That's all good, but here is the important question I have for you to ask yourself. Are you a shit-making factory? Would you define yourself as a shit-making factory? Is that how you, when you look in the mirror, is that what you see? Because if you eat 3 times per day, you literally turn yourself into a shit factory. Right? This is a very important question to ask yourself. Do I want to be a shit factory, or do I want to be an optimized racing machine that is built to do the utmost it can do? Right? Because if you are wasting most of your vital energy every single day to just digest food, you don't have much of energy left, and then you wonder, why I don't have energy today. Well, yes, of course, most of your vital energy is going into processes that are unessential to your vitality. So I'm not saying you can do this like right away, but over time you can start experimenting and see how it feels to, let's say, eat twice per day, like intermittent fasting, right? Start experimenting with these things. Doing intermittent fasting, skipping breakfast, maybe skipping lunch, skipping dinner, skip at least one meal. Try this out, see how it feels. Then once you get used to it, and the body would adjust and your mind would adjust as well, because the most important thing is to realize that there is no such thing as hunger. Hunger only exists as an imagination or a thought in the mind. There is no physical manifestation of hunger. If that's something that scares you, I can guarantee you there is no such thing as hunger. There are only wonderful thoughts that your mind would create about how tasty something would taste, because the mind is a junkie for all the chemicals and hormones that are released after you consume or digest certain type of food. Especially the ones that would be very hard to get in the natural environment, such as sugar, fat, and salt. These 3 would be the main ones. That's why you crave these things. It's not you that craves it, it's the mind that wants it, because the mind wants to get high. And the only way to get high is for you to supply it with what it wants. So going further with this, we kind of like wrapped up nutrition and how much to eat, right? These are basic things. We can go very deep into these aspects, but the most essential thing is, again, investing upfront in the highest quality food you can get your hands on. It's not about the quantity, it's about the quality, right? And how readily available the nutrition is. So meaning you don't cook the food, you eat it as raw as you can. And trying to avoid any meat or life forms. I'm not saying fully remove it from the system, but the less meat you eat, the better it is for you. Because meat takes a very long time to be digested. The human intestine is, don't quote me exactly on the length, but it's, I think, anywhere between 30 to 40 feet long. And meat stays in the intestine to anywhere between 48 to 52 hours before it's digested. Any meat, any type of meat left in the warm, outdoor, starts to rot after 24 hours. So you can imagine that half of the time this meat is being digested in your gut is already rotten. And it's creating inflammation and all these infections and so on. You don't want to have anything rotten inside, because if I was to give you a rotten piece of meat right now and you were very hungry, you still won't eat it. You most likely you're going to poke your guts out rather than trying to eat it, right? But that's what's occurring inside your body, even though you don't recognize it.